Day 3 of the Formula One 2026 Barcelona Shakedown is now complete. We can now have a look back at what has really happened. Even if the lap times don't really matter, there's a lot to be learnt from the news that's come out of this private test that F1 has been trying so hard to keep under wraps. Starting off with day 1, 7 teams hit the track immediately: Red Bull, Mercedes, Alpine, Haas, Racing Bulls, Cadillac, and Audi, with Ferrari and McLaren choosing to sit out for the first day. The most notable things to come out of day 1 were the reliability from all the teams, which was fairly impressive. Compared to 2014, which was the last time the engine regulations had such a huge change, back then only 93 laps were completed between all the 10 teams combined. This time, the teams averaged over 400 kilometers each, with Haas alone doing 154 laps in the Ferrari power unit. To many surprise and to Red Bulls, their powertrain had an excellent day out, with Isaac Hadjar calling it a surprisingly smooth experience and only minor issues. The team completed 107 laps, with Max Verstappen sitting out in day 1. They also managed to complete the fastest lap of day 1 with 18.159 from the C3 soft tyre, according to sources. Whilst the lap times don't really matter at this stage, the combination of laps completed compared to the other teams, as well as the lap time can suggest to us that Red Bull are fairly confident that they can push their power unit quite early on. On the other hand, some teams were having quite a hard time, most notably Audi. Gabriel Bortoleto was the only one out on track for Audi on day 1, but unfortunately with a technical issue they limited to 27 laps, and for a new team that is not as satisfactory. It was more of what we were, to be honest, expecting for the rest of the teams, but now Audi with that lap count is pretty much an outlier. Similarly, Cadillac didn't really have much of a good time. Expectations were low for the American team, and despite being 6.4 seconds off the pace and that time not really mattering at the end of the day, they didn't really get many laps in, with Sergio Perez only completing 11 laps and Valtteri Bottas completing 33 laps across the whole day. To be honest, the only really big incident of day 1 might have been Franco Colapinto stopping at the end of the pit lane, and it wasn't too much of an issue out of that. He managed to complete 60 laps across the whole day and they were managed to get him back out. And apart from Audi, who also caused a bit of a red flag, Gabriel Bortoleto stopping on track as well. Overall, it was an okay session for the teams. They were able to get their mileage. It was dry pretty much all day, apart from maybe at the start where the track was a bit damp. Liam Lawson also caused the red flag, but this was just the anti-stall when he was doing the practice start. Moving on to day 2. This was a fairly quiet day with only 2 teams out on track. Ferrari were the first ones out with Charles Leclerc in the morning. However, they only managed to get a few dry laps in before the rain came down. Max Verstappen also completed his first laps in the RB22 despite a red flag in the morning after running into the gravel at turn 5. Everything seemed okay for the 4-time world champion. Lewis Hamilton took over from Charles Leclerc in the afternoon session, whilst it was very, very wet, and to be honest, not much learning could be done for the 2 teams. Which begs the question of why Ferrari even wanted to go out on the day, considering the weather forecast was potentially better for the rest of the days, as we'll talk about later on. Overall, Max Verstappen did set the fastest time of day 2 with 18.578, completing only 27 laps, but we know that he will have another full day in the car, probably on Friday after Isaac Hadjar's crash. Speaking of Isaac Hadjar's crash, he took over in the afternoon session, completed 51 laps, and unfortunately towards the end in turn 14, seems that he had a bit of a spin. It was captured on camera by a few of the photographers. Now question marks regarding whether Red Bull will be able to run for the rest of the shakedown. Fortunately, Lauren Mekies spoke this morning and said that they are flying out some new parts and they expect Max Verstappen to get a whole day on Friday. Moving on to day 3 now, and this is probably the most interesting one of the 3 days that we have had so far. First of all, the big news is the McLaren finally came out the garage under Lando Norris's number 1 McLaren. And they joined the test around 11 a.m, so they did take a bit of a while to get started. Mercedes, Alpine, Racing Bulls, Audi, and Haas all returned, and as we previously mentioned, Red Bull did not run as their car was damaged from day two. Cadillac also sat out, so they're planning to probably go out on Thursday and Friday to complete their 3 full days. McLaren ran their black livery that they revealed on Monday morning. Considering they skipped the first 2 days, it seems like it hasn't really put them much on the back foot. And interestingly, they do seem to have one of them aggressively designed cars with a very interesting side pod, that sort of waterfall effect that it has where it goes ramps down, similar to the last generation of cars. Another important thing to note was their front wing, which was very, very intricate, especially around the end plates, which seem to be very sculpted in a different way compared to many of the other teams. We obviously do know that McLaren last season cut off development quite early, considering they were in a title fight, to focus mainly on this 2026 regulation change. Mercedes seemed to preserve their status quo of this test, and they topped the timesheets with both drivers and logged over 300 laps so far to across these 3 days. Kimi Antonelli set a lap over 1 minute 17.362 and completed 91 laps. George Russell just behind his teammate, 2 tenths behind with 92 laps, so that's a very, very solid day. Next on that list was Franco Colapinto, who reappeared alongside Pierre Gasly on the day, the Alpine having split the day between the two drivers, and we also expect Pierre Gasly to complete the final day on his own. Colapinto completed 58 laps with Pierre Gasly completed 67. It is important to note that obviously Mercedes are supplying the engines for Alpine this time round. Haas had an on and off day with Ollie Behrman completing 42 laps, which may not seem all that bad, but they did have an engine issue, it seems, in that Ferrari. So Ferrari engine's first issue of the 3 day test. As I said, 42 laps, but with that stoppage, they really would have expected to do more, considering Ocon on day one completed 154 laps. We still don't know the nature of that issue, so I'll bring you that information as it comes along. Racing Bulls had another very, very solid day. Arvid Lindblad completed the most laps of the day with 120 and only 2 seconds off the pace. Very, very good news, I would say, for the Red Bull powertrains department and Ford, considering Red Bull so far mentioned that they only had really minor issues, but haven't had anything that's caused them to stop or lose mileage, apart from the crash, of course, but that wasn't engine related. The bleakest day of them all, and the team that has been really disappointed would be Audi, with Nico Hulkenberg finally getting a run in the car and getting the whole day. Completed 68 laps, but there was an issue this morning that caused a bit of a red flag. So Audi really need to double down and figure out really what's going on. They did complete a shakedown in Barcelona a few weeks ago on their own, and news coming out of that was that they couldn't complete their whole program because of these engine issues. Remember, Audi is building their new engine, and having taken over from Sauber, it is effectively a whole new team. And that's a wrap for day 3, and I mean, you could say day 2 and day 1 of the Barcelona test so far. I really appreciate everybody that stayed this far, and I would really appreciate again if you could drop a like and subscribe to the video. Trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the summer break. I'll be bringing plenty more content like this and better. Obviously, I'm trying to improve my skills on editing as well, so I do apologize if this has come out a bit choppy. So once again, thank you very much if you made it to the end, and I hope to see you in another video.